As I mentioned at the start of today's service, the discourse will be a continuation on the theme of awakening. Today I'd like to talk about two areas which are vital in terms of awakening. The first is intention, and the second is expectations. So let's start with intention. Why is intention so important in terms of piercing through the Maya, glamour, and illusion so that we can become awakened? Intention colors our actions, and the color of our actions determines our reality and our experience in this reality. Let me try to say this in a slightly different way, which will hopefully make it clearer. So from intention, we get action. And if we have right intention, then we will have right action. And if we have right action, that leads to less suffering. And if we have less suffering, that leads to joy and awakening. One of the important concepts with intention has to do with the clarity of the intention. And if you look at Buddhist texts and Buddhist teachings, some, not all of them, talk about this clarity of intention. So for your action to be clear, the movement behind that action, in other words, the intention, must be clear. So how do we make sure that our intention is clear? Well, some Buddhist teachers talk about being aware of your intention before the intention, during the intention, and after the intention. And by the way, this applies to any intention. Whether you're intending to have a constructive conversation with a colleague at work, whether you're intending to write a book, whether you're intending to cut somebody off when you're driving on the highway, whatever the intention is, which leads to a particular action, this clarity of intention concept comes into being. So let's break the clarity of intention concept into its three parts: the before the intention, the during the intention, and the after the intention. So what do we mean by before the intention? So before you intend something, the question we must ask ourselves is, what is our state of being? Because the intention is going to arise out of that state of being. So is our state of being a place of being centered? Our emotions are calm. We are free from negativity. Our purpose is constructive and to help. Our goal is not to create a storm within anybody else or anything, for as the masters say, you should not be creating a storm in another person, another being, or another thing. Or is our state of being one of disarray, where our emotions are all over the place, or we are filled with negative emotions like anger and jealousy and envy? where we're doing something out of revenge or to get back at somebody. So being aware of our state of being and making sure that we are in the correct state of being allows us to have right intention. So the next step with respect to this clarity of intention concept is during the intention itself. And this is really a matter of keeping that state of being going forward. So during the intention, as we are moving from intention to action, is our state of being still one of calmness, of unity, of love, of kindness, of compassion, of understanding, of helping another, of being constructive? Is that our intention? Or is it the reverse? This can apply to very simple things. I'll give an example. You're on the highway and you're driving your car. And it's rush hour traffic. So a lot of different people are in a high emotional state. People are cutting each other off. And on your right side is a person that is trying to get into your lane. And you're following very closely to the car in front of you. And because of that, the person on your right can't merge into your lane. So what is your intention behind that? So we look to our state of being before the intention. And are we calm and are we centered? Or are we the reverse? Are we angry? Are we agitated? And so are we following the car in front of us so closely to prevent the other car on our right from merging into our lane, because we're trying to prevent them from getting in the lane, because we're acting out of this state of disarray, this emotional dis-ease? And as we continue to do this, as our intention turns into action, what are we trying to accomplish? Are we being compassionate towards them? Are we being generous towards them? This person on our right trying to merge into our lane, or is it something else? So we've talked about before the intention, during the intention, and then the last part in terms of this concept of clarity of intention has to do with after the intention, after the act. So why are we thinking about that? Why are we contemplating that? Why is that of any import? Well, the reason is if we're doing it in a fashion of being constructive in terms of intentions in the future, then are there lessons to be learned from what we have done? Are there lessons to be learned from our intention and the action and the results of that action, which can help us in the future and can color our intentions into the future? So those are the concepts associated with clarity of intention. And before I leave the subject of intention, I did want to share a quote. And this supposedly comes from the Buddha. I'm not really sure if it does or not. But the Buddha was at one point teaching about intention, and what he said was something to the effect of, let your actions, colored by right intention, shine like the jewels of royalty. So let your actions, colored by right intention, shine like the jewels of royalty. So the next item I wanted to talk about today with respect to piercing through Maya, glamour, and illusion so that we can become awakened has to do with the concept of expectations. Expectations are really, really important on the spiritual path. The reason for this is that expectations blind you to all possibility. The reason for this is that expectations bind you to a certain outcome. Expectations are what you think should be, not what is. So that with expectations are like ice. Ice can be broken. It's hard. It doesn't let you move if you're stuck in the ice. So because of that, you don't go with the flow, like water that hasn't turned into ice. So a flowing river. This is going with the flow. A flowing river is the opposite of expectations. So what constructs our expectations? Pretty much everything in our reality. I could give an example of, for instance, what other people think can determine our expectations. So you have a group of friends. These group of friends went to a movie without you, and after the movie, at some point you get in contact with them and they tell you, that was one of the best movies we've ever seen. It was emotionally moving, the acting was great, the story was unbelievable. You have to go see that movie. So what your group of friends has told you about this movie leads to an expectation for you that this is really a good movie, and you have to go see that movie. So when you do go to the movie, you have this expectation that it's going to be the most wonderful thing you've ever seen. But it turns out you don't like the movie. You're not moved by its story. You don't think the acting is particularly good. And because you had this expectation about the movie, and the movie did not meet that expectation, that leads to unhappiness and suffering for you. And it's not just what other people think that can construct your expectations, but this is societal norms about how you should behave or not behave, or what you should do or not do, or what jobs are good or not good, what people you should hang out with or not hang out with. We get expectations from things that we read, including spiritual texts, by the way. Those color our expectations. Things we see on television, the internet, all of this comes together, and if we allow it, we create these expectations in our mind. The reason that expectations are so dangerous on this path to awakening is that expectations are not the truth. They are not reality. They are the illusion. So let me, if I can, give you another example of this. And the story that I'm going to share, I've shared many times before, but for a different purpose. This time I'm going to share it with the concept of expectations in mind. So this story has to do with a Buddhist monk who is invited to a village to give a speech, to give teaching to the members of this village. And the village, the people are very, very excited. This is a well-known religious teacher. This is somebody that they feel is going to inspire them, is going to put them on this right path to enlightenment. They've heard all kinds of great things about this Buddhist teacher. So the teacher gets to the village. And when he's at the village, there's this area where the teaching is to take place. And the villagers gather in the area, and the teacher is on a stage. And the first day, he sits on the stage and doesn't say anything or really do anything except sit quietly on the stage. Now, this really angers a lot of the villagers because they have expectations about how a spiritual teacher should behave that's coming to their village to give them teachings. How this teacher should be witty and engaging and evoke emotional responses in them and change their life for the better. So the next day comes, and what does this Buddhist teacher do? He sits on the stage and doesn't say anything, and doesn't do anything except sit quietly, further angering members of the village, further dashing their expectations. Finally, on the third day, this Buddhist teacher, he gets to the stage, and he asks the villagers to bring their most sacred religious text to him. And the villagers are saying, finally, we're going to get something out of this spiritual teacher. So they bring their most sacred religious text to the teacher, and he puts it on his lap, he opens it up, and what does he do? He takes a page and he rips it out. He takes another page and he rips that out. And many members of the village are aghast. They cannot believe that this spiritual teacher is desecrating their most sacred text. This is blasphemous. So the point of this story in connection with expectations is the message of the teacher was lost on the villagers. He was trying to point out that it's not in the spiritual text. It's in you. Everything is in you. Yes, spiritual texts can be guides. They can help you. They can assist you. But the true glory, God's true glory, is within you, within each and every one of you. Now, because a lot of the villagers had expectations about spiritual teaching and what this Buddhist teacher should or shouldn't be doing, what he ended up doing was really harmful for them in the sense that they were bound to their expectations were dashed. This caused them suffering and unhappiness. And the whole truth of what the Buddhist teacher did was lost upon them because they were stuck in the illusion created by their own expectations. It takes great discipline, dedication to your spiritual practices to clear yourself of expectations. To clear yourself of expectations derived from what people think, from societal norms, from what you see on television, on the internet, what you read in books. This comes to play with, for instance, new practitioners to the spiritual path. So new practitioners come in, they learn about meditation, and they have these grandiose expectations that once they start meditating, their mind is going to be calm, their emotions are going to be calm, they're going to get these great spiritual insights. And I'm not suggesting that may not happen quickly, but for a lot of people, it does not happen quickly. And it takes the efforting, it takes the responsibility, it takes the dedication, and it takes the focus in order to continue to go back, continue to sit down, continue to meditate day after day, month after month, year after year, until you do have this clearing of your mind, of your emotions, of your inner being. And it takes time because of the power of expectations, because of our bind to this world of illusion and glamour and Maya. Now, I wanted to leave all of you with another, it's actually a poem, and let me read it to you. This is a poem by a Persian poet by the name of Hafiz or Hafez, I guess you can say it either way. And it's a poem, a short poem about expectation. And this particular poem is about giving without expectations. So the poem goes like this. Even after all of this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look at what happens with a love like that. It lights up the entire sky. So we have time now for a deep level meditation. Thank you.